Hey guys, Jinxed here, and today I want to show you how to sweep all 5 regions Elite 4 on one amulet coin or charm.
But that's simply not possible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
This strategy is more advanced than a gym rerun and definitely has a higher cost to entry, but it can yield better payout, along with the benefit of it being done every 6 hours. If you ever tried going against the reruns of the Elite 4, you might be asking how we can consistently beat them that quickly, and this is where PokeKing comes in. The Chinese community of PokeMMO has done an absolutely incredible job mapping out exactly what to do in every possible situation, against every possible team of all the Elite 4. This is a very impressive feat considering there's 5 regions, each with 5 members, who each run 8 different teams, a lot of which have random leads. This means there's over 1,000 different lead Pokemon that all have branching paths depending on what they're doing. However, they've mapped out exactly what to do in every one of these situations. The only catch is that it's all written in Chinese. Lucky for us, we have Google Translate. PokeKing is amazing, however it's only mapped for the Elite 4 level 100 teams. The first 3 times you beat the Elite 4 after completing the story, they have lower level teams. You'll have to beat these 3 times in each region on your own without a guide, so I'll go over how to do that shortly. I will start by going over some information about the Elite 4 rerun, including the amount of earnings, the team you need for this strategy, the general setup for how we win, how to get the PokeKing guide set up, and how to use PokeKing in English using Google Translate. Make sure you have a solid understanding of the general strategy section too, just in case you make a mistake so you have something to fall back on and you don't end up getting wiped. With the Elite 4, if you lose to 1, you have to restart from the beginning, and also there is a lockout timer, so you don't want to lose partway through. You also can't leave once you begin, so make sure you're fully prepared before entering.
Son, you know, once you start, there's no going back.
I know.
This means total commitment. Once you begin the path, there is no leaving the path.
It kind of goes without saying, but make sure you have strings for these. I have a guide linked in the corner of your screen and in the description for the strings that I use and how to install them if you don't have any yet. These speed up the run a ton by cutting out all the useless text. I assume anyone doing the E4 probably knows about these, so we'll just move on. Before we get into it, I want to give a huge thank you to SZPD, along with a few people from Petrowski's Discord. Zanarchy, Free Reign, and many others were super helpful when I was trying to get this all figured out. Along with a massive thank you to the PokeKing community. They developed this incredible resource that allows us to do this efficiently. First things first, let's do a quick overview of the Elite 4 fights, how much you're going to make, and what they're all about. The main thing you probably care about is how much money you can earn. It's very easy to complete at least 4 regions with this and have time for rich trainers or gyms after. Once you get some practice and you have some fast mechanics, you'll be able to complete all 5 regions on a single charm most of the time, kinda depending on the RNG of the teams that you get matched up against. On average though, it'll usually be about 4 regions plus 10 minutes of charm time for either red, rich trainers, or gym leaders. Each Elite 4 champion has a base profit of 66,000 Pokeyen and 2,000 battle points, which is roughly equivalent to another 20,000 Pokeyen. This means that clearing all 5 will pay out 330,000 plus 10,000 BP before any bonuses from coins or charms. Since riches and battle point charms only come into the game during the Lunar New Year event, the price of those will vary throughout the year. But if you add a riches charm 100% and a battle points charm 100%, that's 660,000 plus 20,000 battle points, or a total revenue of about 860,000 per hour. Add donator status on top of this and you'll be netting another 33,000 per run, up to a total of 893,000. Even with just an amulet coin and no battle point charm, you'll still be gaining about 600,000 revenue per coin on a full clear. Of course, you have to deduct the cost of the charm and the items required to complete the run, so make sure to use a calculator in the description to see what charm is best for you based on the current market prices. Huge shout out to Caav for developing this very detailed calculator. I find to spend about 50 to 65,000 per run on items depending on the matchups that I get, and I'll cover the items that you need in just a moment. Now that we have the earnings out of the way, let's look at some of the other information about Elite 4 reruns. As I mentioned, you can do each region once every 6 hours. And if you ever fail a region, you'll be locked out for a total of 45 minutes, starting from when you first entered that run. You won't be healed in between battles, so it's very important to bring potions, revives or revival herbs, burn heals, antidotes, air balloons, healing berries of any kind other than wiki, and some lepa berries to restore your team. Make sure to only use basic potions since the price per HP is the same on all of them. However, with basic potions, you won't overheal, wasting money. When healing, always hit the max and then deduct one potion so that you don't end up wasting any potions. You'll also be consistently using X speeds and occasionally X defends and energy roots, so it's important to have a solid stock of these before starting. I'd recommend having at least 500 potions, 20 revives, burn heals, antidotes, air balloons, and healing berries, along with some lepa berries, about 25 X speeds, and 5 X defends, and 5 energy roots on hand. Personally, I just buy up way more than I need so that I don't have to restock consistently. You'll use an average of about 150 to 200 potions, about 20 X speeds, a couple revives, a couple air balloons, and some healing berries throughout the run, if you go through all 5 regions. The champion is the only one who pays out, so never pop your riches charm or battle points charm until right before the first champion. You don't need to waste charm time on the first 4 members since they don't pay anything. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's take a look at the team that this strat will be running. Here's the team we're going to use for the strategy. While there are many teams that work with PokeKing, this one's called the Reckless Man's team and is the fastest and, ironically, the most consistent team. That said, it's also the most expensive due to the hidden ability Excadrill. There are other teams that are a little cheaper, but also a little slower that I could make guides on if that interests you. If it does, let me know in the comments below. Before getting into these, I will say that I do recommend overall getting 31 IVs to match since that's what the AI is mapped out for. However, I have read that this can work with some cheaper versions. I haven't tested this myself though, but if you're willing to run into the occasional issue with AI not following perfectly, you could save a lot of money by going with budget versions. I'll discuss some optional budget versions that I found when looking around on Bilibili for you to consider as we go through each one. However, do keep in mind that there is a risk of failure that may be introduced as you shift towards more budget versions. The first member, or should I say members of our team, are 2 identical Metagrosses. These 2 need to be Jolly Nature with the moveset of Trick, Earthquake, Stealth Rock, and Thunder Punch. Their main purpose is to trick or set up stealth rocks while baiting the AI into either ground or fire attacks, since these are both super effective against them. These 2 will rarely use attacks, but sometimes will have to use Thunder Punch or Earthquake. They need to be quick enough to get their trick and rocks off, which is why Jolly is used. Also, they need to tank some hits, so defense is important here. You could probably get away with attack IV being about 20 or higher if you're on a budget, however, prioritize 31 in defenses and speed. And try for the 31 attack also if you want this to work perfectly. These 2 will also have the following EV spread. You're going to want 54 defense, 252 special defense, and 204 speed. The item that they hold is Choice Scarf, so that we can trick it onto the enemy and lock them into an attack that we're immune to. The next trick user we have is Blissey. Her moveset will be Trick, Protect, Stealth Rock, and Soft Boiled. Blissey's main use is just another trick user, so she'll use a Choice Scarf also. Due to her normal type, she's useful for baiting out fighting moves, which can be great for leading into a setup. She also needs 31 in HP, defense, special defense, and speed with bold nature. She also needs 252 HP and 252 defense EVs. I wouldn't recommend going on a budget for Blissey, but you could probably get away with maybe 30 IV in some of those to save some money. Now that our trick users are out of the way, let's take a look at our 3 sweepers. First up is Chandelure. For this, you want Modest, however, Timid should work if you have one. Just make sure to do an extra Calm Mind or 2 when setting up if this is the nature you go with. You'll use an air balloon as your item, and Flash Fire as your ability. This leads to immunities against ground, fire, and fighting attacks, which go great with Metagross and Blissey leads since these are the 3 that are super effective against them. Chandelure needs 31 special attack and speed IVs. You might be able to go a little budget with the defenses, however I'd recommend keeping them at least 20 or 25 plus on all 3 since you will sometimes have to tank hits while setting up, and these are calculated to be safe at 31 in all defense IVs. For EVs, you'll want 252 special attack and speed and 6 in defense. Your moveset will be Calm Mind, Flamethrower, Energy Ball, and Shadow Ball. You can PP max Flamethrower if you don't want to worry about Leppas, since that's the most commonly used move on Chandelure. The next one we'll look at is the reason that this strat is so pricey, and that's the hidden ability Mold Breaker Excadrill. The hidden ability Excadrill only comes out at Lunar New Year and is limited to 1 per character via the raid. With its common usage in this strategy in the Chinese community, along with being a strong PvP Pokemon, they're in really high demand. Combine this with the very limited supply, and you have a base price on these things of around 600 to 700k. If you were playing at the Lunar New Year event and beat the raid, you might have one of these kicking around in your PC, so make sure to check for that. The reason Mold Breaker is so important on this is because you'll be using Earthquake commonly against Pokemon with Levitate. Mold Breaker allows you to hit these Pokemon and leads to easy setup sweeps. Excadrill will want Adamant Nature with an air balloon as its item. This will provide it with both ground and electric immunities that we can set up on. It needs 31 in its attack and speed IV, and while I recommend 5x31, you should be okay with about 25 plus in your defenses. In some rare cases, you will need to tank some hits while setting up, just like with Chandelure, so just be mindful of that if you go with the budget version. You'll want 252 in your attack and speed EVs, and the leftover 6 can go into defense. Excadrill's moveset will be Sword Stance, Earthquake, Stealth Rock, and Iron Head. The most commonly used attack is Earthquake, so if you PP max that along with Flamethrower on Chandelure, you shouldn't really ever have to worry about Leppas on this run. Finally, the last sweeper we have is Poliwrath. This will be your least used one, however it is essential to the strategy. Poliwrath will need Adamant Nature, the Water Absorb ability, and a healing berry of either Figgy, Ayapapa, Agave, or Mango. The Water Absorb gives our team a water immunity for setting up on. Poliwrath's moveset is Belly Drum, Ice Punch, Earthquake, and Drain Punch. Belly Drum makes his setup incredibly fast compared to the other two, since it goes straight to +6 attack. However, the halving of its HP unfortunately makes it necessary to have very bulky defense stats. Often the routes are calculated based on it belly drumming to hit a perfect amount of HP to activate the healing berry. If your defenses aren't high enough, a hit that's calculated to activate the berry could result in a KO. Due to this, I'd really recommend having the IVs perfect on this one more than any of the other sweepers. The nice thing is, at least you get a lot of other PvE use out of this, like the Ho-Oh fight or some of the other upcoming raids. The EV split for Poliwrath is 250 attack, 32 defense, and 228 speed. Again, this defense is calculated specifically for tanking hits to activate the berry at specific times, so it wouldn't mess with this build too much. So now that we have the team out of the way, let's take a look at the general strategy and how you're going to make it through the first 3 runs. If you've already cleared these and are on the level 100 teams, or if you're familiar with trick setups on immunities, use the chapters on the time bar or the timestamps in the description to skip ahead to the PokeKing setup. For your first 3 runs through, there's no map or guide. Luckily, the teams are lower levels, so it's a good chance to learn the strategy with low risk, since you'll occasionally misclick during a guided level 100 run, and you'll have to come up with your own strategy on the fly. First off, you'll always be leading Metagross in every case. The main things to know are how the AI chooses moves, our own typing immunities, and how Trick with Choice Scarves work. Let's start at looking how AI typically chooses its moves. The number one thing AI cares about when attacking is just doing the most HP. 9 times out of 10, this is done by choosing the super effective attack against its target. So for example, if we have a Metagross in, and the opposing superior has Leaf Storm and Hidden Power Fire, it'll choose HP Fire because it's super effective and therefore will do more damage. If we want to make the superior swap out, we can swap in Blissey, and the AI will calculate that Blissey has a high special defense and that it'll do more damage with a fighting move on one of its other 6 Pokemon, so it'll swap out. Let's say it hard swaps from Superior to Lucario, and it'll now use a fighting move like Close Combat or Aura Sphere to be super effective against Blissey. This is the main system we're going to utilize to force the AI into using an attack that we're immune to. Between our 3 sweepers, we have 6 type immunities: Fire, Ground, Fighting, and Normal on Chandelure, Electric and Ground on Excadrill, and Water on Poliwrath. This is also why we use Metagross and Blissey as our triggers for this. The types that are super effective against them are Fire, Ground, and Fighting. If something uses a super effective Ghost type attack on Metagross, we simply swap into Blissey, which will force the AI to change into something with a fighting attack. By utilizing this, we can consistently get the AI to use a move that one of our sweepers is immune to. Once we know what attack the AI will choose, we can trick with the choice scarf. Let's say the AI leads with their own Chandelure into your Metagross. Since you can assume that they have some kind of fire attack, you can immediately trick and put the scarf on it. It'll use its flamethrower, and then we can safely swap into your own Chandelure. Usually, you'll want to set up rocks just in case there's focus sashes or sturdies before setting up, so do that and then swap out. From there, just use Calm Mind until you're +6, use an X speed, and sweep. Now, let's take a look at a less straightforward case. Let's say you're going up against a dark team and they lead with Liepard. This doesn't have any obvious fire, fighting, or ground moves, so we're gonna just see what it does, but we'll try a trick. We see that it chooses Foul Play, in which we have no immunities to. Now we can swap into our Blissey, since Foul Play will do very little damage to her. Now the AI realizes that this is a terrible matchup and swaps hard into a fighting move with Honchkrow. We immediately trick to lock it into superpower. We set up rocks and then sweep with our immunity and Chandelure. For some reason, when attacking a Pokemon with an immunity, the AI seems to get confused and typically just stays in on the matchup. Now we just set up and sweep. Nine times out of 10, you're just going to use Trick right away and then Stealth Rocks with Metagross. From there, you're just going to set up and sweep. Or sometimes you have to swap into Blissey to get a trick into a proper immunity. However, there is sometimes where you lock them in with Blissey on something that you don't have an immunity against. Typically this is when you swap into your second Metagross and try forcing another swap out of them. Usually this can work, but it requires a little bit of practice to figure out. Sometimes you even swap into like Chandelure to try to bait them into a water attack, which is where Poliwrath comes in, but that's a little bit more advanced. These fights can take a little while, since going up to +6 every fight wastes a lot of time. But once you're done with your first 3 runs in each region, you won't be going up to +6 or even using an X speed in every fight. Now that you have your team and you know how to use it, it's time to see how we optimize the run. If you enjoy the challenge of the Elite Four, you don't really need this part. However, if you want to fly through 4 or 5 regions in 1 hour, this is how you do it. First, let's head to PokeKing.icu. From there, if it doesn't auto-translate, then select this icon at the top and click Translate to English, or you can right-click the page and go Translate to English. From there, we're going to select Personal Center from the top left corner here. Then it's going to take you to your registration page. Again, if it doesn't auto-translate, just right-click the page and go Translate to English. From there, you're going to go to Registration. Here, you're going to just type in a username, password, and email. You need to make sure you're using an email that you actually do have access to, because you do need to confirm your account. If you want to make up a fake email for this, you can do so. However, make sure that you can actually go into your email and confirm it. After you've confirmed your email, go back to the home page. We're going to go back to Personal Center and use your login details to get into your account. Now you're going to go down to where it says Use Free Code, and you're going to copy and paste this code here. I have this linked in the description for you to copy and paste, or you can look at it here and just type it out as you see it. Then you're going to click Save, and now you should be all good. That's all you need to do to get registered for PokeKing. Now that you're logged in, let's see how we actually use it. So you're going to click King at the top, or this green button here, and now you can see that there's all 5 of the regions here. Now if you click into any of these, it'll actually only show you the teams that they have. For example, if I go into Kanto and I go to Kona, then you can see that they show you the teams that everything's on. Now if I click into one, it'll show you the teams and what items and moves they have and how to solve each one. However, this is way too much, so this isn't actually what we're looking for. When you go in here, there's a very, very important button you need to press, and that's Routing Table, this yellow button at the bottom right corner. Make sure you click on that. Now when we go in and we click the person we're fighting, it'll tell you exactly what you're going to do. So if we started in Kanto and we go to the first of the Elite Four, these are all the possible leading Pokemon that they can send out. So from here, the first thing you're ever going to do is always whatever it says at the bottom. So let's say Lapras comes out. It says Trick, so the first move we're going to do is Trick. But let's see what we do afterwards. Now there's a whole bunch of different options, and this is where kind of learning how the translations work comes into play. So let's say I trick, and then we're going to see what happens. Let's say as we're tricking, a Hariyama comes out. Well, we look at our options, and we know it's probably not Lock Drill, it's probably not Coconut Tree, but we see Iron Palm Warrior. Now, Iron Palm Warrior sounds like a pretty good description for Hariyama. So in that case, we just follow this line here. If instead Lapras had used Surf, we would instead use this line here. If you ever see an arrow, that means you have to click down and you have to see what happens afterwards. So let's say he swaps into Dragonite, then you'd follow this path. That means he's going to use Flamethrower. If he goes into Slowpoke, continue to strengthen just means continue to buff yourself up. It takes a bit of practice to learn what these are, but after a few runs, they become pretty straightforward. I've compiled a document with some of the weirder ones that's linked in the description, so if you come across a translation that kind of stumps you, check that out and see if it's on there. If there's any that you don't see on there and that did stump you, then let me know in the comments below and I'll try to add them to that document. If there's ever a name you don't recognize on the list or you can't figure out, for example, let's say I don't know what Coconut Tree is. So he sends a new Pokemon out and I don't know what it is, I can't figure it out from the name. So I go back and then I look, what Pokemon does he have? Well, this one here says Coconut Tree and it's an Executor, so I know that if that's the Pokemon that was sent out, I would just follow that path. So now let's take a look at what these weird symbols and numbers mean. There's 5 symbols that you're going to need to be able to recognize. The first one being this pin. If you see a pin, that means use Stealth Rocks. If you see a light bulb, that means hard swap into Chandelure. If you see a mouse, that means hard swap into Excadrill. If you see a frog, you're going to hard swap into Poliwrath. And if you see an egg, you're going to hard swap into Blissey. Those are all the symbols that you need to know. The numbers indicate what buffs you're going to use. So in the example we were looking at with Iron Palm Warrior, that means after your trick goes off with Metagross, you're going to hard swap into Chandelure, use Calm Mind 4 times to get to +4 special attack, and then the +2 means your speed boost needs to be +2. 1x speed raises your speed by 2 stages, so if it says +2, that means you only need to use 1x speed. So in this case, we'd use Calm Mind 4 times with Chandelure, and then use 1x speed to get to +2, and then we can sweep from there. The only one that varies from this a little bit is Poliwrath. That's because of the way Belly Drum works. You'll notice sometimes it says 2 + 6. The 6 for Poliwrath is always Belly Drum, no matter what, because Belly Drum only goes to +6. So the 2 for Poliwrath is just if you use the X speed before or after. If we open up this path here, we see it says 6 + 2 with Poliwrath. And here it says 2 + 6 with Poliwrath. In the top case where it says 6 + 2, that means you use Belly Drum on the first turn he's out, then use X speed on the second turn he's out. If it says 2 + 6, you're going to use an X speed on the first turn he comes out, and then Belly Drum on the second turn he comes out. The reason this is important is because sometimes you need to take a hit during the time that you're using the X speed so that you have enough health with the Healing Berry to get to +6 with Belly Drum, since you always need at least 50% HP to use Belly Drum. As for Excadrill and Chandelure, they're always very straightforward with the special attack or attack boost first and then the speed boost second. Now most of them are much more straightforward than that. For example, if we look at Raichu, we click in, we know we trick first turn, then we're just going to swap to Excadrill, get to +6, which means use Sword Stance 3 times, use an X speed, and then sweep from there. If you ever see here where it says Lai Shang, and beside says look at the props, that means watch for the item. Depending on the item you receive during the trick from this Dragonite, will change the path. So if you get a Life Orb, he'll use Thunder, you're going to swap into Excadrill and go 2-2. So let's take a look at how this all comes together. In this fight, we see Salamence comes out first. So we look and we see it says View Features first. Look at the Intimidation. We're looking for the skill and we see there's no Intimidation, so we follow the no Intimidation path. It says Trick and look at props. So we're looking for the prop, we get a Life Orb, so we follow that path. Next, we see he uses Earthquake, so we swap to Excadrill, and then it says Pin 2-2. So first thing we're going to do is set up Stealth Rocks with Excadrill. If he keeps Earthquaking, we'll just set up to 2-2, or in this case, when he swaps out to Lapras, that means now that we have the rocks up, we're going to swap to Poliwrath. From here, it's just 6-2. So we're gonna belly drum and then use an X speed, and then we can sweep from there. Some other common words that you might need to be aware of is that magic is sometimes used instead of trick. Spread the nail sometimes means stealth rocks. Cut means to hard swap. Giant monster, giant golden, or Metallica are often used instead of metagross. And if they call you stupid, they aren't insulting you, they're just warning you that using that move would be stupid because it won't one-hit knockout.
Your intellect is as weak as your dollar. Failure is your destiny. You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
While working through some of these translations, I found a few that were definitely worth sharing. Here are some of my favorites. Slowking, or the King of Dub. Sableye, or Seductive Eyes. Scrafty, the Turban Gangster. Electros, or Mama Eel King. Chansey, or Jigglypuff, because that's not confusing. Blaziken, or the appropriately named Flame Chicken. Poliwrath and Politoad, being the mosquito repellent swimmer and the mosquito repellent incense frog. And Megmortar, or Platypus, which I never noticed before, but now I can't go back to seeing him the same way. Those were just a few of the hilarious names that I found, but I'm sure you'll find a lot more along the way. Let me know the funniest ones you find in the comments below. So once you beat one of the Elite Four members, let's see what you do next. So let's go to Raichu here, and once you've tricked, swapped Exodrill, powered up, and then beat her, you're gonna go next king. So if you go to the bottom right here and click this green tab, it'll take you to the next leader, and then you just continue from there. The other option is you can click up here to go back and choose whichever one you're on, but the quickest way is to just choose the one directly from the next king button. Once you've gone through all 5 and you beat the champion of the Elite Four, you're going to come back here and click on the region that you're in. That'll take you right back to this selection screen, and you can choose the next region that you're going to go to. So if you're going to Hoenn, you come here, you click the first one, you click the lead that you see, you beat them, you go next king, and you continue through until you beat that champion, in which case you return back here to choose your next region. It takes a bit of practice to get through this quickly, but once you get it down, you can beat it pretty quick. There are some other last notes that I wanted to touch on if you want to optimize the route even further. These are just to maximize your efficiency, and they're not really necessary, but if you do enjoy the optimization, here are some useful tips for you. The first one is a pretty commonly known one, but if you just hold Control and A, you'll repeat your A input. This can speed up the setup when doing Calm Mind like 5 or 6 times. Just make sure that your selector is on the correct move while doing this. The next thing you can optimize is by cutting down on the final cutscene where the champion congratulates you. While in the fight, right after the payout comes, you can log out, end your session, and log back in. This will immediately take you to the end cutscene and save you some time. Just make sure you wait and watch your money and log out immediately after the money gets deposited into your account. Lastly is the best route. I always start with Unova because the cutscenes going up to each member are the longest of all regions. From there, you could just go through the regions however you like, but I usually like to end with Sinnoh because you can get right into the best Ridge trainers if you have the extra time. If I have some time after beating all 5 Elite Four, I'll go hit P.I. Carlos and then Bellinpaw. Then, if I still have more time, I'll try to go back to Unova and beat the 2 Ridge trainers there. Now that you know about the Elite Four, what team to use, how to beat them on your own, and how to utilize the PokeKing guide, you should be set for going and beating the Elite Four for yourself. This will take some practice to get quick with, however, with some practice, you could become a pro in no time. And even if you don't get to all 5, if you clear 4, you'll still have plenty of time to hop into a trainer run or a gym rerun with your extra time if you don't want to risk going for that last champion. If you have any questions about the run, please feel free to leave them in the comments below or join my Discord community and reach out there. I always read every comment on these and I try to answer questions as quickly as possible. If this video helped you out, consider giving it a like and subscribing to help me grow this channel and reach more people with these kind of strategies. These kind of videos take a lot of effort to put together with all the translations, so I appreciate any and all support, whether it's just subscribing or if you want to go above and beyond with a YouTube membership. Thank you so much to our current supporters, either here on YouTube or subscribers on Twitch or any other support. Feel free to come hang out live with me, usually on Friday nights MST. I'm streaming both here on YouTube and on Twitch, so stop by and say hi. Maybe I'll run some Elite Four runs live for you guys. Thank you all so much for watching all the way through to the end, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.